Hi everyone, Josh Bowers here, and I wanted to share with you a teaching dilemma that I am facing in my student teaching placement. And before I get into that, I wanted to add a point to the video that my wonderful friend and peer Sarah McSweeney shared about with this teaching dilemma that to be good at math, you need to be fast at math. I think this notion comes about, which I also noticed in my student teaching placement from my mentor teacher, that this comes from standardized tests being timed, and for students to be considered successful and good at math, they need to be able to do it fast and accurately because that is how they are evaluated by the state at the end of the year, which that gets into a whole other dilemma about standardized tests and whether they're effective or not. However, that's beyond the scope of this video, but something else that you can consider and think about as you're facing teaching yourself. Now, for my dilemma that I wanted to share with you today, it kind of goes into culturally relevant pedagogy. And to go into the story, the other week I was teaching and introducing a lesson on complex numbers. Now, for those of you who need a quick refresher, complex numbers, those came about and were defined by mathematicians because before this point, my students were unable to take the square root of a negative number because no two numbers multiplied by itself is going to give us a negative number. We would need one positive and one negative number. Therefore, mathematicians came up and defined this imaginary number I to be able to take the square root of negative numbers. Now, I was teaching this and one of my students politely and kindly asked me, what's the application of complex numbers? When am I ever going to use this? And my response was, I don't think they were fully appeased by my answer. However, I tried to go into how it's used in electrical engineering with circuits and defining whether or not energy is flowing through the circuit to be able to define whether it's real or complex. However, I didn't feel great with my answer. I don't think my student felt great with my answer, but they said okay and we moved on. However, I think this comes up a lot in just school in general sometimes, but I think especially in a math classroom where students, they just see math as a procedural thing that only occurs in a school building, but they don't see it outside in the real world. They don't see it as applicable to their lives, which oftentimes comes also from the thought that they're not going to go into a math field in the future. Therefore, why am I learning this now? I think that comes up a lot. And even if you are going into a math field, at least for me, I personally questioned whether it was late in high school or in college. I was questioning, why am I learning this? What's the point? Like, who came up with this? What? And I think that is just a common fact that comes up. And I think we need to make it more culturally relevant for students to see that there is math in the real world. And something that came up with the authors from our courses that we learned this semester, Dr. Jo Bohler. I'm slightly obsessed with her at this point. Thank you to Dr. Carrie Coca for introducing this to me. In her book, Mathematical Mindsets, she discussed how in one of her chapters that math is just this beautiful uncertainty. It's this beautiful uncertainty that we don't always know the answers to. And just for a few examples of math in the real world, that blew my mind. One of the ones that I didn't know was that spiders, when they make their webs, they start to create it in this logarithmic spiral, which I didn't know actually occurred. And I think that lesson for, I'm assuming it would be like trig pre-calculus, that would have been so much more eventful for me and meaningful to me that I would remember based on realizing, oh my gosh, this happens outside of a math classroom. And I think what we need to do as teachers is that we need to meet students where they are and to know where they come from. And even if it's a real world application, or if it's more based on culture, whether you have students of color just relating to what they are going through, that they can then start to see math rather than just being placed in the classroom. They can start to see it everywhere around them, even if it isn't going to be their end destination for their career, which I think is really important and could just make math a lot more fun rather than just this procedure that you need to go through to get to the answer. You can see that it takes place all around us, and that's a really cool phenomenon. For me, I think it was super helpful to think about teacher dilemmas. I've had more than one that have come up throughout this, even just this first semester. It's been great to be able to talk to my friends and colleagues who are also going through their student teaching placements. It has helped me to realize that I'm not alone in this, because whenever, especially if you're watching this in the near future, I did my student teaching placement during the COVID-19 pandemic, which meant that schooling, I was completely virtual and I didn't see my kids face to face, at least so far yet, hopefully soon, we'll see. But from that standpoint, I've solely been with my mentor teacher. I haven't really been able to observe other teachers or talk to too many other people, which has, when that happens and you see these dilemmas kind of taking place and you see some conflict, you think that, oh my gosh, am I just completely already messing up this teaching thing? Do I even know what I'm doing? Like, what is happening right now? And to be able to hear from my peers in class, oh, I'm going through that too, that's totally normal. And just for my professors to calm me down and say like, no, that's fine. Like, you're not weird. Everything's going to work out. It's good. That has allowed me to face my teacher dilemmas, and even though I haven't fully been able to conquer them just yet, I've at least been able to have a peace about it, to know that I am doing something right and that I'm just going to have to keep trying and to keep pushing to teach how I want to teach rather than how someone else teaches. And from that, I think we can learn and grow even as I go throughout my teaching career. Hopefully, I'll be able, whether it's other student teachers or just other teachers coming into my room and giving me feedback, I can see how my practices are affecting my students, and hopefully then I'll be able to constantly want to change to make myself better and to make my students more successful. Thanks all for watching. I appreciate it. Have a great day.